4 days into the series, day one at Port of Spain finally gives us a bit of a contest. At least for one session, West Indies put the pedal on India at last. There were two wicketless sessions, but in the middle came one West Indian burst, which saw them take 4 wickets, limit the runs, put some pressure on India, and as a result, day one at Port of Spain, the second test, finishes with India 288 for 4 after 84 overs, joined by Deep Dasgupta to look back on the opening day's play in Port of Spain. Deep, a bit refreshing, especially that middle passage to see a contest.
Absolutely. I think that's the first session that West Indies has won so far in this series. But yeah, that was a session where you thought, this could be interesting. That kind of brought West Indies back into the game, but obviously the third session again going wicketless has put India back into a very dominating position again.
Yes, and the architect of that, India's top scorer on the day, Virat Kohli, in his 500th international game, he's again had to grind it out, like we discussed in that first game where he also scored a 70 odd. These two innings in these two games, even if you look at that century against Australia and Ahmedabad, they've almost had shades of Tendulkar's 241 not out, if I may. In that, this is a batter who we've been so accustomed to seeing just as a flair batter, always flourishing. But we now have to see him grind it out and fight it out for hard
Yeah.
earned test runs.
True. Again, I mean, we were talking about pitch, but the Sport of Spain pitch again wasn't as quick as we thought it would be. It was kind of fine when the ball was new, but obviously when Virat came out to bat, it was quite old, so it got softer. It was that much more difficult. But I guess, yeah, I mean, the way has played, we've played on pitches where the ball wasn't really coming onto the bat. I mean, apart from that one-off final, I don't think we played on pitches where you you may not call them batting friendly, so to say. But having said that, again, I mean, the experience of what 500 international games, that's come good again.
I know I promised you that I will refrain from predictions through this series, but this one's just staring at me, so bear with me. Will match number 500 bring with it 100 number 76?
76 it is. It just seems that he's determined. I mean, the way he batted, even the last, half an hour, 45 minutes. So just before that, post tea, there was this 1 hour of post tea, first hour, where he looked a lot more fluent. He was playing a little more fluently. But then again, last half an hour, 45 minutes, Varican coming over the wicket as well, and he's kind of, he's wired in. He's wired in for number 76.
And I want to talk about the ones who have missed the opportunity. Let's start with Shubman Gill, who we spoke about in the lead up to this game and how he could adapt to number three and what he needs to do. He now really has to view these two innings and this series as a missed opportunity, failing to cash in what has been favorable conditions for batting.
Especially this innings, definitely so. When he came out to bat, I mean, the pitch was still playing pretty nicely. If, the ball was still coming onto the bat, so definitely he'll feel that way. And uh, it's interesting, it's quite interesting that the way he's got out, barring that second innings against spin, the first innings of the first test, and this first innings as well. Uh, See, I'm sure a lot of people would be talking about technique and things like that. Uh, but I think there's a reason why Shubman Gill. I still remember this is what I've heard. Even in the last series, not the WTC finals, the series against Australia, I think there was this chat of the team management asking him to bat in the middle order, but then he refused. He wants to open, and maybe there is a reason why he wants to open, because there are a lot of batters that I know are not comfortable sitting and waiting with the pads on to go in next. There's a lot of nervous energy and everything else. A lot of players who are used to batting in the middle order, they've by the time they reach at this level, they found out a way to control that or channel that nervous energy. I don't know whether Shubman Gill still has that skill set. So I'm not going to talk about technique that much, because this exact technique has brought him success in the past as well, on much more difficult pitches. I don't know whether I think he needs to work out a method where he can actually put on his pads and wait if he has to bat in the middle order.
You look at these numbers and you see that after what was a very successful debut series in Australia, including that stunning knock in that Gabba game, the runs have dried up outside Asia. There's not a single score of 30 in his last five tests outside Asia. How do you view that, Deep?
It's quite interesting because I personally still believe that his skill set as a batter is more suited to the middle order in Test match cricket. At number four, number five, especially at five, he plays spin really well. Maybe that's his position, and that's personally for me. I think he's more suited to bat at four or five. So obviously Virat at four, but maybe that's something that he needs to look into because I still don't think his technique as such or even the way he bats basically is compact enough to be a test opener. He's very good. There's no two ways. His skill set. I mean, he's a stroke player. He's aggressive. All that is very good. But I think uh, uh, I think his skill is more suited to bat in the middle order rather than open.
Right. Speaking of the person who does occupy that number five slot right now, a case of missed opportunities for him as well, because Ajinkya Rahane, a new lease of life given to his Test career through the WTC final, and made vice captain again. And you have to view this series as a disappointing return, single digit scores in both the innings so far.
Okay, now yes, that's okay. So on one side, I heard Ronak saying it was the fastest delivery of the series. It seems so. Obviously, was a little late on it. Now, keeping that aside, now the challenge for the selectors are he played a really good knock WTC finals. He looked really compact, but then that's followed by rather three innings, right? Yeah, three innings of not really much substance. And then what? I mean, the selectors have to figure out what do they want from Ajinkya Rahane. What are their expectations of Ajinkya Rahane? If it's going to be one inning out of five, if that's the kind of ratio, should they still persist with him, or they start? It's about time to start looking at maybe someone else. So I think it's very very important for the selectors to figure out their expectations and it's quite surprising that he's been made the vice captain of this series as well, which I thought was quite surprising after making a comeback in the WTC finals. But for me, I think if it's going to be like that, a 70-80, and then three test matches of single digit or whatever or low scores, is that what you expect from somebody as senior as him, somebody who's played so much of cricket, or more?
Talking about the Pacers, they obviously had their moment in the sun through the afternoon, which was the session West Indies dominated. But that afternoon burst aside, would you say, in particular, Roach, Joseph, and Gabriel, who've all gone at over four? In Roach and Nalzari Joseph's case, it's nearly five per over. Have they been guilty of leaking few to many and just releasing the pressure that came with those wickets?
Yeah, absolutely, no two ways. I thought the first half, I mean, hour and a half, they were all over the place. Shannon Gabriel looked a little rusty in his first and even the second spell to a great extent. Uh, but I also thought in that first session, the bowlers you know tried a little too hard because they won the toss and they elected to bowl. Obviously the expectations are that much more from the bowlers, to pick up early wickets. Let's be fair, they did create chances, which was dropped in gully, dropped in slips. So they did really create chances, but I think they they wanted to do something extra at times, and that's the reason they kind of faltered as well. But that second session, they were nice and tight. They bowled really good channels, and they got the reward for that. But the other thing, if I may add, is the whole captaincy thing. I think it's was kind of negative. I mean, if I mean the start and the end of the innings or the day, a great example. I mean, that pitch had. I mean, it might have been on the moist side. The pitch, I don't know. I mean, we really can't really figure out what we've seen from on television. But uh, I don't think that was a bowl first pitch. So
that was first thing. So that was kind of a very negative thought process. Now the end, the second new ball was available, could have easily bowled couple of overs with that second new ball. You could see both Jadeja and Virat were playing for the close of the day. Come on. I mean, I thought they would get that new ball, ask the quick bowlers to come in and bowl an overreach, maybe at most couple of overs. But I thought they would attack the Indian batters the last 10-15 minutes once the second new ball was available. But again, I thought that was, that was baffling to me.